I go to dozens of mental health facilities because of my show, you know what I mean? Because I don't know if you remember, but Terry has a mental breakdown and Ezra has to look after him. And so my audience, my target demographic are offenders, ex-offenders, homeless, people in recovery, and people suffering from mental health issues.
Who are you? What's your name? And why are we speaking here today?
Okay, so my name is Errol Mcglashan. I first started performing in about 2011, performing in an official capacity, because I've always been a performer. I've always been a showboater. You know, I hardly ever shut up. And then there was a way for me to, you know, gather all this together, and I joined the spoken word circuit in about 2011. Then after about 5 or 6 years of that, I started running my own events. And then during lockdown, I wrote this show called Something to Take Off the Edge. Basically about two mismatched cellmates. There's Ezra, who's loosely based on me. And then there's Terry, who's loosely based on somebody I used to know, an Irish traveller. And it's about these two mismatched guys who get thrown into a cell together, long-term sentences in the 80s. And they wouldn't usually get on, but Ezra doesn't get visits. Terry does get visits. And visits was the way that people used to get their hash into the prison. And while you're in prison, you need something to take off the edge of being in prison. Now, the phrase take off the edge is a Shakespeare phrase, and it comes from Hamlet. And I kidnapped it. So this show is about two mismatched cellmates and the friendship that develops between them as they flirt with narcotics, chocolate hobnobs, and Shakespeare. Because back in the days, in the 80s, you could not go to the education department in a prison without someone coming in and shoving Shakespeare at you. And I used to always resist it. It's only when I became a poet, I thought, let's have a look at what this Shakespeare stuff is all about. And then I realized that I was being ignorant when I dismissed Shakespeare, because it is beautiful. And, you know, a lot of people find it inaccessible. But the beauty comes in working it out. I find the same with the Bible. Sometimes you're reading something, you're thinking, what is this? But then when you work out what the author intended, it opens up like a flower. So yes, so that's me, and that's what I'm doing at the moment.
So could we say that Shakespeare was one of your role models then?
I wouldn't say he's a role model, but I'm inspired by his works because it's timeless. You know, from the moment Shakespeare's been writing right up to now, it's a work that will never go out of fashion with the literacy crowd, you know. And also, you know, when you think about it, the two works of literature that has had the most effect on the English language is Shakespeare and the Holy Bible.
And that's very true, isn't it? Going back to your Ezra and Terry, you said they're based loosely on people that you know yourself and so on. So were you in that predicament? Were you in that position?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Yes. So, you know, I run creative write shops myself, you know, for various people, you know, and I always say to them, listen, number one, publishing companies and theatres, they are always they're looking for the untold stories. You know, sometimes they'll run a workshop and they will steal those stories. You know what I mean? They are looking for the untold stories. And yes, so I use the circumstances of my life, and I've used it in my poetry. I've used it in this show that I've written. But yes, I grew up in care. Mostly in care. Yes, I knew my mum, but I was put in care from a very early age. And there's something about kids who grow up in care, especially if you're in a home with other kids, that you are 5 times more likely to go to prison than university. University was not talked about. Prison was talked about. So I knew from an early age I was going to go to detention centre and Borstal. I knew it. In fact, I was looking forward to it because the older boys in the home had been. They'd come back.
And was that something instilled in you then from the home?
It became a rite of passage. Wow. It became a rite of passage. You know what I mean? It's something I expected. But it's not only for kids in care. Lots of these youths, them on the street, some of their older boys have done the Young Offenders Institutes, and they know they're going to go. They know they're going to go. And you know what? It can be scary at first, but then when you see people go in and come out, they survived it. Right. You know, young people are looking to identify themselves in the world somehow. Yeah. They're thinking, what are they going to be? What's going to become of them? And all the rest of it. They're just looking for an identity. Once you can land on an identity, you get a sense of stability. Whether that identity is shotter, you're shot in brown or white, whether that identity is of a hard man or a thief or a fraudster, or it could be someone who's really good at table tennis or, a motor mechanic. But once so young people are looking to identify themselves. And when they see people who are slightly older than them, who they identify with, and they've done these things, they will follow suit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That's why I asked you about role models. And with that being said, you've completely turned your life around from saying that then. I would say so to a large extent, There's other things that come into play, my age. I can't be going to jail. I'm 61 years old. You know what I mean? I can't be in and out. I got locked up during lockdown. I was the fourth person in the country to get done for an assault on an emergency worker during the pandemic. It was a new charge, and me and the ambulance driver got into it. Next thing I knew, I pleaded guilty, and I got 6 weeks because of my previous. And I'm in this jail, big old dirty 50-odd-year-old man in this prison with all these youngsters in their early 20s, and thinking, what am I doing here? But I'd already decided that was a mishap. That shouldn't have happened. I'd already decided to turn my life around 8 years previously. And then when you decide to turn your life around, all these organizations or people who've been trying to help you, you realize, they can help you. But if you haven't decided, what these people will say to you will go in one ear, out the other. And you'll do this program and that program, and it's not going to make any difference because you haven't made a decision. But yes, so my age was one thing. The other thing is, certain responsibilities. Like, my flatmate got a dog, and I look after this dog all the time. And then we got another one because our dog had 12 puppies, and we sold the puppies. And then we thought, we can't take away all her puppies, so we ended up keeping one of the puppies, and now the puppy's as big as a bloody dog, as the mother. So we've got these two big dogs in the house. Supposing I get into some sort of jip in the street in Brixton or somewhere, and then I get taken to the police station and then held overnight. What's going to happen to my dogs? So responsibility.
If my flatmate is not around, you certain responsibilities, you know what I mean? And it's about growing up. It took me ages to mature. When I speak to young people, I say, what mature people do? Mature people pay for shit. Get in the habit of paying for stuff. It's 15 pence for a Lidl carrier bag.
I know.
I make a habit of making sure I pay. That used to be against my religion in the past. What, pay for a carrier bag? Are you crazy? Now I make a point of it. You know what I mean? No, I'm going to pay for stuff. No, that's one thing, paying for stuff. The other thing is walking away from crap, walking away from jip. You know what I mean? You get into it with someone. Walk away. Walk away. You say, just hold on. You say to the person, hold on, let me stop you right there. Then you turn around and just walk away.
Yeah.
Walk away. It doesn't matter. These little things, when you are lying on that cell bed or that prison bed later on, just because you got into some stupid little shoving match or worse, which hold on, it's not like nothing like that's ever happened before. It's not as if nobody's ever spoken to you like that before. Walk away from stuff. Don't get into stupid arguments. Let me tell you, I go into prisons all the time now because of my work. But even when I used to go into prisons all the time because of my criminal work, you know what I mean? 9 out of 10 of those prisoners, they're in there for something. It might have been a serious crime. The circumstances were stupid why they're in there, It's hardly ever because they've made mega, mega, mega wonga. It's something violent or some stupid petty theft and all the rest of it. Grow up.
So it's quite interesting in you saying that, because when we rise to anger, people say, well, they made me angry. Well, no one can make us do things. And it's about us being in control, isn't it, of our emotions, in control of our vessel. So it's
That's
lovely
it.
that
You've got to
say
take
that.
ownership of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because if someone made you angry, how is it that me and you can come across the same situation and then you might laugh and I might get angry, or the other way round, you know what I mean? So, you know, we both witness the same thing. So, for instance, me and you are waiting for somebody at Brixton Station. So the three of us are going to go out, yeah? And we're waiting for someone, and then this person's late. Now, I might be happy they're late because I want to spend some one-on-one time just with you. So I might be happy about it. You might be angry they're late because, you know what I mean, you've been waiting about and they said they were coming. So it can't be that that person has made me happy and that person has made you angry. It can't be. It's we make it ourselves. So yeah, I hear what you're saying there.
Absolutely.
Once you take responsibility for your emotions, then you can control them better. Because you can't control other people. My next show, as I said, you know, I got baptized last year. I sort of, my eyes are pointed at Christ, you know what I mean? My next show is called, and I'm actually preparing for it at the moment, it's called Whoever Has Ears to Hear, which is a phrase in the Bible, which is in Mark's Gospel. So I'm going to do a dramatic recital of Mark's Gospel. So at the moment, I'm committing it to memory. There's 16 chapters. I've got 7 chapters memorized. I've got the book with me at the moment. I carry it around with me everywhere I go, just the Mark's Gospel. And anytime I've got a bit of spare moment, I start mumbling to myself because I've got to commit it to memory before I turn it into a show.
Will it be a solo or will you have other
actors
in this one?
It'll be a solo piece, but I've got this idea that because I want to break it up with a bit of song and the odd hymn or the odd little bit of poetry. What I've got this idea of is putting plants in the audience, or depending where I'm going, where comes to a certain thing, you know what I mean, where they just stand up and start singing. Then they sit down and then I carry on with the text just to kind of break it up a bit, you know what I mean? Otherwise, the text can be just laborious. But I know that if I walk past a theatre, and I saw, a dramatic recital of the Gospel of Mark, I would pay 20 quid to go and sit down and watch that. Why? Because I'm a Christian and I'm interested in what God has to say. And plus, I'm lazy when it comes to reading the Bible. So I like the idea of just sitting there passively and somebody reciting stuff. That sounds
amazing.
And because I'm a performer, it wouldn't be just me going, in the beginning of the Gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. You know what I mean? It will be a dramatic recital. The beginning of the Gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, as it is written in the prophets. Behold, I'll send my messenger before your face to guide your way before you. You know what I mean? And bring it to life on the stage, just in the same way I bring to life my one-man show.
Awesome. So if someone wants to follow in your footsteps then, Errol, what advice would you
give
them?
If someone's going to follow in my footsteps, okay. Right.
What advice would you give them?
I would say, don't follow in my footsteps because when I'm young, because you're going to end up in jail, you're going to end up in all kinds of things. You know what I say to people? I say, listen, save. Start saving money. When you save, this is something that, these are things that I never did. You know, like when you save, it does something for the brain. It gives you a sense of responsibility. It gives you something to look forward to. And it gets you used to things increasing. You know what I mean? This idea that, you know that if you save £27 a day, if you can manage somehow to make £27 a day, whether you knock on your neighbour's door and say, listen, can I dig up your garden? You know what I mean? Or do you need any painting done or whatever? Say to young people, you don't have to young people, you could be 40 and do that. You know what I mean? Somehow you could be employed or unemployed. Somehow try and save £27 a day. That's 10 grand in a year. You know what I mean? Try not to touch it.
It's very good.
So that's one thing. Save money, get in the use of saving, you know what I mean? Because then you can think bigger. You can think, you know what, I could buy that car if I wanted to, because I've got, you know what I mean, I've got $4,000 saved. I could get that used car. This idea of saving, I think, is a beautiful thing for anybody to do, you know what I mean? The other thing is, write, journal. There's a very famous book called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've heard of it, by Julian Cameron. And one of the it's for about people with writer's block. But one wonderful exercise she's got in there is called the morning pages, where you get a jotter. A pad from Poundland, and then you get your pen from WH Smith. Don't get the pen from Poundland because it's just going to run out. It's going to stress you out. In Brixton, they're opposite each other. So you get the jotter from Poundland, and you cross the road, and you get the pen. Then you put it beside your bed. And when you wake up in the morning, before you even wipe the sleep out of your eye, you grab the pen and the pad and you write 3 pages. Now, it says 3 pages. If you only want to do 1 page, just do 1 page. And you write down your thoughts. You don't think, you just put the pen on the paper and you write. If you don't know what to write, you say, I don't know what to write. I don't know what I'm doing this. What is the point of doing this? But anyway, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up, I'm going to write. You can just write stuff, or you can write deeper stuff. You can write your to-do list. When you write, you get in the habit of writing. Writing is therapy for the brain. Writing helps you to sort out your problems. You think of all your memories, all your thoughts, all the words that people have said to you, all the words that people, things that have happened in the past, things that you want to happen in the future, things that people have said to you, all the stuff that you watch on TikTok. It's a mess. It's a mass of jumping crap in your head. Yeah. When you write, it's like you're sorting it out. It's like you're kind of untangling it, you know what I mean? And you pull out. And let me tell you, it's hard to write nonsense for more than half a page. Some of it's going to be, and then you don't read it. You just shut the book, put that back under your bed or your nightside cabinet, and then you do that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then one day, just sit there and read what you've written. Have your highlight pen. You'll be amazed. You'll have forgotten some of it. Some of it would have come from your subconscious, where lots of art comes from, because you would have just woken up. You'll be amazed what you've written there. And then you'll realize, actually, that is something that I've wanted to say to my mum, what I've just written there. I can say that, you know what I mean? Or actually, I'm writing this poem. Those lines, that will go in that poem. And you'll realize that you can use some of that stuff for your art, for your writing. If you don't want to use it for that, at least it's therapy. So what did I say? Start saving 27 quid a day, preferably. But if you're really young, you can't get 27 quid a day, then save a £5 a day. And sometimes saving is just not spending. You know that. I buy sometimes up to 4 coffees a day. You know what I mean? Wow. Coffees they're costing $3.60. Man. You know what I mean? Up to 4 a day. That's like 15 quid easily.
You don't take flask.
Pardon?
You don't take a flask?
See what you just said there? That is how you are practical and creative, you know what I mean? So I said to you, this is brilliant what you just said there. This is brilliant. So I said, look, sometimes saving is just not spending. And then I said to you, because my energy gets low, I drink 4 cups of coffee a day. How am I going to get round there? You've just made the solution, haven't you? You've just done the solution. I mean, buy yourself a rotted flask from Pound Shop, fill that thing up, and you are going to save yourself, you know what I mean, a tenner a day easily. You put that in your bank account. And if
it's just the cup that you like, keep the cup. Just because sometimes it is the psychological thing that cup is the cup of coffee. So if that's the case, you keep that cup.
Especially if it's got a nice quote on it, a nice positive quote or something on it, So as I said, and then there's sometimes when you're going out and you're just buying something to eat, you know what I mean? And then you say to yourself, hold on, my mission is 27 quid a day. Remember, you got yourself a mission. Hold on, my mission is 27 quid a day. Even if I buy that meal deal right now, that's going to be like a £5, and I'm still going to be hungry afterwards. So what you do, when you're at home, you cook your pasta and whatever, you put that in a nice Tupperware container, and then at least you're eating what you want to eat. Yeah. Now, I say these things. I'm not saying I do them. I'm saying that that's what you should do. And if I was to live my life over again, that is what I'm doing. When I see somebody, when it's lunchtime and I'm on some course or workshop or I'm, delivering something, and then, I say, anyway, I'm popping down to Tesco's, and then I see people say, oh, no, I'm all right. And then they pull their little Tupperware container out of their... I so admire it. I cannot tell you how much I admire someone who does that. You know what I mean? It's a healthy habit to do. You're eating what you want to eat, and you're not wasting money on junk food. You know what I mean? On rubbish. You just have to watch. There's a YouTube video on the sandwich making industry. And you just have to watch that. You just think, why do I eat sandwiches? This is nasty. Look what they're putting in there. Look how they're doing it. You know what I mean? But then you forget what you watch. You just think, hunger takes over.
Yeah.
What else would I say? The other thing about the writing, everyone says, they'd love to write a book. They'd love to write a book. As you say, you've written, what do you say, 9 books you've written?
That's right, yeah.
I've got one coming out. I've got one coming out on the 5th of September, which, as you know, a page a day is a book in a year.
Yeah. 5 minutes, I say. One of the exercises I do is I get people, I get them to choose like a verb, a name, an animal and so forth, and give them 5 minutes to write a little story. And it's surprising how much you can write in just 5 minutes. I say 5 minutes a day, which amounts to 35 minutes a week. You'll be quite shocked.
It's a well-known thing, Tash, it's a well-known thing that if you set someone a time, you just say, all right, one of the exercises I do is like, there's 4 words, given, forgiven, lost, found, and they have to write for 3 minutes on something given, 3 minutes on something lost. It's amazing what people come up with if you don't give them time to think. There's no need for them to think. People are thinking all the bloody time. You're constantly thinking. You know what I mean? You're constantly thinking. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to start thinking about what you're going to write. You're constantly thinking. You know what I mean? Say 3 minutes, there's the clock, set the clock and say, put the pen on the paper, start writing. Do not think about it. Just start writing. It's amazing. It's amazing what people come up with. And especially the forgiven one. It's amazing. These are the things, the other thing, so a page a day, you got a book in a year. Also, writing is not writing. Rewriting is writing.
Yeah.
So when you've got to write, and then you are thinking about what you've written in your day or whatever, when you're talking to someone, you talk about what you've written, or you're thinking about what you've written because you're thinking, you see that line in the middle, maybe that is my starting line. But you can't do that if you haven't written anything. Now, procrastinators, and as we know, writers are very good at procrastinating and having writer's block and all the rest of it. The problem is because it's the getting started, because there's so many subjects and so many ways that you can approach a subject to write about that you just cannot get started because there's so many things. So this is why it's necessary, is just to put the pen on the paper and write. Then you rewrite it. Yeah. You just, even if you write it exactly the same, which you will hardly ever do, you just say, right, I've just written half a page, half an A4 page, you know what I mean? I've been thinking about it for the last 24 hours. I'm going to rewrite that. I'm going to rewrite it on this clean piece of paper. As you're rewriting it, you realize how you can write that slightly better. So it's necessary. You don't think about what you're going to write. You spend your time thinking about what you've written, and then you will improve it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's funny because...
what about... Yeah, go on.
So I was going to say the book that I've just completed, I was so excited at portions. I was like having to tell, Kenny all about it because I'm like, she's going to do this and that. And it was just the excitement in just the development of the characters and the story and just where it was going. So
what you've done there, you've touched on something, you know what I mean? That is what motivates people to write. Have you ever been writing something, you just start laughing at your own writing, at what you've written?
All the time.
It's like you're, or I've cried. I cried because you know what I mean? I've made up this scenario and I'm thinking, oh, I feel so sorry for this girl, you know what I mean? You can cry, you can get excited. I've been writing and all of a sudden I get so excited I have to stop because I want to use a toilet. You know what I mean? you know, what you're saying there, you know, is this thing, you can't wait to talk to. They say, listen, you want to see what I'm writing. So I had this idea of these two people, you know what I mean? But this guy keeps flipping in and out of the past. He keeps flipping in. When I say flipping in, I mean physically. He goes to the past and he comes back, but you don't know because he's just there in front of you. You know what I mean? And then you talk about what you've written to someone and then they might say something. You just think, rah. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that, American writer.
Maya Angelou.
She said, oh, before I was a writer, I was a reader. You need to read because you can put your, you know what I mean? I say to prisoners all the time, turn off the blasted TV. When I used to go to jail in the 80s, back in the day, there was no TV. You know what I mean? You'd have to read. Otherwise, you'd crack up. You know what I mean? You're just lost with your thoughts. You know what I mean? You'd have to read. Now they got TVs on in the cells and they've got telephones in the cell. Nobody's writing.
What?
Nobody's even writing.
They have TV and cell phone in the cell.
Most prisons have got the TV in. Well, all prisons have got TV in every single cell. Yeah. In fact, you know, let me tell you. Supposing your toilet won't flush and your TV's not working, and you say, "Gov, my TV ain't working. My toilet ain't flushing." They're coming to fix the TV before they fix the toilet.
What, you know they get Netflix, or is it just the generic channels?
No. They can't. You can't get internet. Although some people they've got minimum internet. No, it's just the generic channels. Okay. So what they're doing is they're watching daytime TV. They can make a little makeshift area at the back, and then you can get some more channels. You know what I mean? And you know, back to back Judge Judy. You know what I mean? All this kind of bloody stuff. You know what I mean? Daytime TV, rotting their brains. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is that spend an hour or so reading every day. Even half hour reading every day. And it's very hard to read just for half hour because if you're reading something decent, you're going to want to carry on. Yeah. Sometimes you can't wait to get back home so that you're going to take your book with you because that book is the most exciting thing what's going on in your life at the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you want to
for sure.
Into it. And then you get more ideas of what to write about, you know what I mean? You can do sentence structure better. You can make sentences structure better. You understand words better. You build up your vocabulary so that when you write, it becomes smoother because you've done all this reading. So, save money, do your morning pages, do a journal, write and then rewrite. So you've got a page every day, and then read and get your book published every year. Get your book published in a year's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we know that a good book takes time because it's the one I've been this one. It just went into oblivion, then it's come out again, and then I've finally got round to finishing it. But it's taken some time because life gets in the way as well.
What's the name? Have you got a title of your book?
It's called The Four.
The Four?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Give me an idea. What's it about? What's it about, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a young lady.
I'll put you on the spot there.
She's a young lady and she's got a lot of trauma in her life. Parents are terrible, and she's got 4 friends. This book, she's got 4 friends. So it deals with mental health, it deals with support, and it deals with real life issues. But she's a 4 with the twist.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and how far would you say you're into it?
Oh, I finished it. It's finished. So I've sent it out.
Oh, it's finished?
Yeah, it's finished. It's finished. But I need to edit because I found a few mistakes, as well as I feel that some of the characters could be spoken of a little bit more.
Then do you get someone to edit it, or do you just do it all yourself?
I do self-publish. Valentine's read it for me.
Oh, right. Alicia. Valentine is brilliant.
Yes.
Valentine's my daughter, by the way, everyone. Valentine, I was doing this funding proposal and she said to me, "Oh, send it to me." And you know what? I don't really want to put it on people because it's so bloody involved and there's so many words involved. I thought, okay, she's asked me. I said, she's asked me, so let me
put it on her. And she, you know, she took the time to go through it. And then she's, you know what I mean, giving me all this feedback in red. Reminds me of school. And then I remember, she's a bloody teacher. Of course she knows how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So amazing. So I got very good feedback from her as well. So, and that she was so shocked by the end of it. She was like, what? So then everything made sense to her. But I can't give out any feelers because then, you know, that would give things away. But it's great to have other eyes as well in it. I often write for people with dyslexia, so it's not so complicated. So it's normally an A5, I think, book, but with larger margins and kind of bigger print, so that people that don't like to read, that's how I base my books on, people that find it hard, you know?
To make it accessible.
Yes.
Make it accessible for everyone.
Yeah. So the ones that I have done previously before, I've always had good feedback. And people are like, where's that other one? You know, they're waiting for, because I wrote another book called 40. They will have the number 4 in it for some reason, but 40.
Oh, right.
And,
okay.
And they're like, where's the next one? Where's the next one? People keep asking me. So I'm going to start that one soon, I'm sure, once this one's out. But I've never done a book launch or anything like that. So I need to.
Oh, right. Well, you should, yeah. You know, what you've said to me is really sort of echoing. It just keeps coming back. You know, what you said to me just before we started that, when you said, oh, have I sent it? Have I reached out to Netflix? It's just never occurred to me. But you know what? I say to, you know what I mean, to my participants on workshops, I say to them all the time, listen, theatres, publishing companies, they're always reaching out for news stories, you know what I mean? Of course, television companies as well, they want that, you know?
Yeah.
And my story, I wouldn't say my story is a unique story, but it's an untold story.
Yes.
You do not hear it, you know what I mean? And, you know, and like when I was delivering it, because, you know, as you've seen it, yeah, so it's raw and uncut, you know what I mean? And a lot of the time they get me to do it in the church. And I have to do a bit of a disclaimer, say, listen, you know, I refer to drugs in this. I swear in it, you know what I mean? And I say, and plus there's plenty of Shakespeare. I have to do a disclaimer of Shakespeare because people, you try to do Shakespeare with people, they just don't want to know. They've been put off with school, you know? And, yeah, you know, this idea, why not? Why not? You know, like I always say, it's a mixture of Scum. I don't know if you know, there used to be there was a film.
Yeah, I remember. I've seen it. Yeah, Scum.
Yeah, with Ray Winston. Yeah,
that was a sad film. That caught my heart, man.
Yeah, where's your tool? There's your tool, you black bastard. You know what I mean? There's Scum. And then there's Shawshank Redemption, and I say
one of my favourites.
My show is Scum meets Shawshank Redemption, because the ending is more Shawshank Redemption than that. You know what I mean? So if I'm thinking like that, then there's no reason why Netflix might think, oh, see, I always joke that I say, yeah, I'm waiting for Quentin Tarantino to call me. You know what I mean?
You never know.
Guy Ritchie. But you got to call them. You got to have your thing ready. Yeah. I'm writing down, you know what I mean? As I'm talking to you, I'm writing down Netflix and I'm putting stars all around it. So now, after this, I'm going to Google how to approach Netflix.
They want people. That's the thing. You can get funding and everything from them. So just go into them, and they've got their UK branch and all sorts. So maybe that's something you and your publicist can tackle or approach. Because I know even for one of my children's books, it's called Hassani and the Time Machine, that I did actually send it to Tyler Perry. I'd sent him a proposal to do something. Obviously never heard anything back, but then maybe I can approach.
Yeah, you can imagine. I've got a friend, Shazanne, and she done exactly the same and never heard anything. And she spent ages to turn it into a film treatment, you know what I mean? And then never heard anything. You know why? Because you got to have an agent. A lot of these guys, a lot of these film producers and that, they won't take unsolicited scripts if an agent puts it towards them, because otherwise they're just too inundated.
Too much, for sure. And it's like the person that goes to Hollywood to become big, isn't it? How many thousands of people do that? You know, so same with script writing, but never give up as well. I'd say that's something that I would say to young people as well. Oh, Errol, this has been so amazing. let us know. You say you've got a few shows coming up as well.
Good luck with editing it.
Yeah.
Yes. So if anyone's interested, so as I said, my one-man show is called Something to Take Off the Edge. Basically, two mismatched cellmates flirting with heroin, chocolate hobnobs and Shakespeare as they serve long-term prison sentences back in the 80s. I perform it all over. So I've done the Camden Fringe, the Clapham Fringe. I performed it at over 60 prisons and maybe the same amount of hostels. And now this publisher who, Insurgent Press, he pull it on me and pull it on me and pull it on me. I said, I'm not really interested in publishing. I said, it's not a book, is it? I said, it's a show. He goes, get it down on paper. He goes, I will publish it. So eventually I've done it. The book launch is on the 5th of September. I'm going to perform the whole show. So the ticket price gets you the whole show and it will get you a book. And if you ask me nicely, I'll even sign it for you. Yes, it'd be great if people can come along to that to see a live show. It's a one-man show. I've won awards. The Royal Shakespeare Company gave me an award for it. They
fabulous.
Picked it out of thousands and then they invited me down to the birthplace of Shakespeare to perform it. It's at the Queen's Larder, WC13AR. The Queen's Larder is a pub.
And what
it's
time?
going to be upstairs in the pub. And it's going to be at 7 o'clock on the 5th of the 9th.
Excellent. So the 5th of September, the Queen's Larder, WC1. Yes. That's in Holborn, yeah? Queen's Larder, Holborn.
That's in Holborn, yes.
Awesome.
And then, as I said, I've got two more. So that one is that one's ticketed.
What price are the tickets?
12 quid.
Oh,
but that
great.
gets you a book and it gets you the show. Okay. And trust me, when I go to theatres and that, I'm charging 15 quid just for the show.
Yeah.
It's 12 quid for the book and the show. You can take photographs. You can film some of it if you want. If you go on to Insurgent Press, Insurgent spell INSURGENT press.co.uk.
Awesome.
And then tickets can be bought on there, Insurgent Press, and I'm taking over. As soon as you see it, it says Errol Mcglashan is taking over.
Okay, so we will go on to that and get some tickets ourselves and come along to that. So Errol, thank you so much for this interview.
Okay.
You've been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me, Tash. Lovely to speak to you again, by the way.
Likewise. And
say hi to Kenny for me.
I will do.
Remember man like Kenny from back in the day.
The day.
Lots of love, yeah?
All right, you take care. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay,
Thanks,
speak to you soon. Bye
speak
for now.
To you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.
My publisher is being very, very strict.
Okay.
He sent me a message saying, listen, he goes, we're not doing any free books. So there's 3 book launches. One of them, everyone has to pay. The other 2 are free. And I said, yes, but I said, there are people who's going to come who might want to promote me in that. So he goes, well, get them to come to the free ones because he's running a business, as he says to me.
Obviously,
he's an independent publisher. He's running a business, and he goes that on the book launch, he goes, that is to launch the thing. He goes, I'm not giving, he won't even give me any books.
Good. Well, make sure that
I said, oh, well, all right then.
We'll make sure that you get your percentage of all the writing now as well. But because you know that I'm a writer as well. I self-publish a lot. You've got to be really careful with that.
You know, my flatmate, that girl with the dog, she published a book. So she's doing a PhD. She got these independent publishers to publish a book, and she doesn't even get £1.
Yeah.
For every she doesn't even get £1 for every book that published. So I said to her, why are you doing it? So she goes, because it gives her exposure.
But it doesn't. The thing is, it doesn't.
But but I just think it's crazy, you know what I mean? So even with this, me and him are going 50-50, you know what I mean?
The thing is, like, because that's something I do. I do a lot of workshops on book publishing, writing and publishing. I've done that for many years. And I always encourage my clients, like, that if they're just never to go down the route of like an Amazon Lulu publishing kind of deal, because you're never going to see a penny, and that's the honest truth. It's better that you have your outlay, get your books printed and sell them that way, as opposed to doing it on Amazon Lulu or Kindle or certain things. Because you never
that's
see the money.
what we're doing.
Good.
So I'm with Insurgent Press, and they are printing the books.
Okay.
So, and also because of my contacts with prisons and prison libraries and all the rest of it, and because some of these prisons, I go and perform the show and there's no pay. They don't pay me. I apply for funding from other places.
Good.
But some of the prisons themselves, they haven't got funding for it, so they don't pay me. And I always say to them, listen, whether you've got funding or not, the show goes on. You know what I mean? So I come there. So then I speak to them and I tell them, listen, I've got a book coming out. And they say, oh, well, send us a thing. And even, there's over 60 prisons. So even if they were only to buy 6 books each for their library,
that's still really good.
That would
like
work out for me. You know what I mean?
Isn't it?
The publisher, we've got a deal 50-50.
Good. Good.
But this is after all the. So he said to me, for these 3 launches, that is what's going to cover the printing cost and the editing cost and the publishing cost. And then he says, after these 3 launches, that is when we'll start making money.
And you're going to make sure that you're seeing the books as well, right? Of everyone
actually seeing them.
Yes, not your literal books. I'm talking about the financial books. We're talking about 2 different books here now. This is.
Oh, right.
This. We're having a little chat before we do your interview, but make sure that you see the numbers, because again, accounting wise, what's the cost to print? What's the cost for publicity? What's the cost to hire the venue? All that kind of stuff. I hope you're taking all of that into consideration as well. Not saying that no one's going to shaft you, but
Yeah, I must admit I haven't, because I do kind of trust him. But the thing is, if he was, supposing he was printing more books than what I knew about and was selling them, how would I get to know about that? How would I know?
Well, you wouldn't. So you need to have a working contract. It's nice that you trust someone. We've all trusted lots of people and they've let us down. So it's nice just to have clarity. Do you have a contract with him? Because you've said, it's 50-50, but what's written in your contract?
No, it's just a verbal contract. He's a nice enough bloke, you know what I mean?
They all are. I've been burnt so many times, Errol. I got my tentacles up all the time, and when I hear someone say something, I always try and set them in the right direction, because it's horrible. You've put in so much work for someone just to come along.
And they say for friends and family, you've got to have more in place than you have, more legal framework in place than you have got to have for strangers.
Sad, isn't it?
Because there's something about friends and family, they take liberties, whereas a complete stranger, you can have, a working relationship with them.
Yeah, we don't set boundaries. You've got to set boundaries.
And friends and family, they sort of take liberties. You know what I mean?
And it's sad that they do. It's sad that they do. But if you need any kind of advice in that area, obviously as a publicist, he's doing his thing. That's great. That's fair enough. But I would just say for you just to do your due diligence when it comes to business and knowing that you are going to be earning something, because you're the one that's putting in all the work. It's crazy, because someone asked me to write their memoirs last year, actually. And so I gave him a really good price. And he says, where the hell do you think I'm going to get that money from? So where do you think my time is really important, So that went awry. However, I didn't have to do the work. So better that I just told you straight up what the cost would be, because I was only going to be writing the book. I didn't want any of the royalties. I didn't want any percentages or anything. But I was going to be doing that kind of work.
You was going for a one-off payment.
Exactly.
A one-off payment for
exactly.
It. Yeah.
So 6 months, you normally get paid £1,000 a month when you get more than £1,000 a month when you're doing work, right? Is that when you go to work, you get paid your salary. So over 6 month period, I charged him that price, but it was obviously a bit too much for him. But never mind.
No, it's too much for him. Yeah. Well, you know what they say, innit? Some will, some won't. You know what I mean? So what? Move on. There's other people who would want that. Yeah,
absolutely.
But, and I go to prisons, hostels, drop-in centres, but also I perform for the personnel, the staff, and the volunteers who work with these people. Yeah. So I've done a room full of police. I've done a room full of prison officers. I've done prison officers about 6 times. Wow. I do it all over the place. You know what I mean? But I've got to tell you, I'm getting a bit fed up of it. And then I thought, oh no, but the book's coming out, and because the book's coming out, there's going to be another, you know what I mean? There's going to be another round of performances and all the rest of it.
I was going to say, have you approached Netflix?
I've always imagined it as some sort of film, but no, I haven't approached Netflix.
Well, that's something to think about.
Yes,
definitely, because it was I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really, really good. I noticed that as well on your picture. Have you been baptised recently?
Yes, I have. Tasha, I'm 61 now. I've had a calling since I was a kid, something about this God thing. But of course, like when I put my intellect on it, my earthly intellect on it, I just thought, this has to be nonsense. The Adam and Eve story has to be nonsense. Lots of it doesn't make sense. But as I got older, I realized that we are limited in our ability to make sense of the supernatural. We cannot explain the supernatural using earthly things, So this is where the words trust comes in, hope, belief. And I realized that I hadn't been exercising these things, faith, trust, hope, and belief. It seems that when people exercise those things, people see it as a weakness. But then what is the point of hope if we don't use it? Hope is that when someone tells you something, you hope that it's true. That means that you don't know. You don't know whether it's true, but you hope it is. The same with faith. You know what I mean? Faith is like trusting that what you're being told, that that you hope that is true. So I've decided to put my hope and my faith and my belief in Jesus Christ.
Awesome.
And I feel, there's a song, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. And that blessed assurance, I feel that there's something that's going to go on with us all after we die. Many people have different ways of trying to explain what goes on after we die. Some people, from the extent where people say nothing happens, you just go in the ground and you rot and the worms eat you and that's you done, yeah?
Cycle of life.
People say, oh no, you're going to come back. You're going to come back as a butterfly or a cow, or, you know what I mean? You come back as a woman, or come back as something different, or come back as yourself, or you might come in. The best explanation for what happens after we die, as far as I'm concerned, is the story of Jesus Christ, the heaven and hell story. As far as I'm concerned, that is the best explanation.
Okay, so we can all change.
I got baptized a year ago and I'm happy. Say again, sorry?
We can all change then.
It's a very similar attitude when people talk about institutionalized racism, this and that, you know what I mean? And I'll say, well, give me an example of institutionalized racism. And most of the time they can't. And they will talk about something that happened years ago. And I say, no, now, in the UK, give me an example of something that you cannot do because you're black and the system's stopping you from doing it. And they can't give me one, yeah? And then somebody will come up with, they'll say, oh, hold on a minute, hold on. Look at the prisons. You go on the prison wings, it's 50% black people, yet black people only make up 15% of the population in London and 4% across the country in whole. So they say, oh, well, there you go. There is an example of institutionalized racism. It's not their fault, it's the police fault. Let me tell you, as someone who goes into prison all the time, been going into prison since I was 14, and then since I was 50, I've been going in, training and running workshops and delivering my show. 99% of those black people in that prison has committed
an imprisonable offence.
Right.
So what are we going to do? Do we say to black people, listen, it's true, the police are focusing more on the crimes that black people are committing and they really shouldn't do that? Or do we say to the black people, listen, stop teeth and boxing people down? You know what I mean? You know, you're not going to change people with power who's going to do whatever they're going to do. You know what I mean? I would say to my son, if I had one, I've got 3 daughters, as you know, but I would say to my son, I would say, listen, stop whinging about the police picking on you and stop walking about with daggers in your pocket. Stop walking about with roadman and stop walking about with weed in your pocket. And then if they stop you, you ain't got nothing. You know what I mean? They might give you a bit of chip, but you're walking. Do you see what I'm saying?
Again, the responsibility.
You've got to take responsibility.
Yes.
You take responsibility for your life and stop committing crime.
Yeah, and the responsibility on their part as well is that the policeman will stop them, and they're responsible enough to not have the knife, not have the drugs, and be an upstanding citizen, right?
I would say so, you know, and don't get me wrong, you know, the police, you know what I mean, you know, coppers can be bastards, as they say. You know, people, back in the 70s and 80s, people used to have ACAB, you know what I mean, tattooed on their knuckles, which meant all coppers are bastards, you know what I mean? But they, you know, you think the coppers are racist and you think, oh, no, you know, police force, they seem to be focusing more on the crimes that black people committed and all the rest of it, you know what I mean? Go to the Congo. The police there, you go to that police station, you ain't coming out. You know what I mean? You're going to get battered. You're going to get brutalised. All over the world, the police are dodgy, you know what I mean? And not all of them. I've met some diamond coppers. I don't even know how we got onto racism. It's probably me who took it there. You know, I'm getting jaded by the anti-racist stuff. I think that it's an excuse for black people not to take responsibility for their own crap. I really do think that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I think that, you know what I mean, they put it out. Oh, it's the system's fault. Oh, it's white people's fault. Oh, it's not. I said, no, it's not. You know what I mean? You know, once I was at this theatre event, and there was this guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a prolific theatre writer. He's a black guy, you know what I mean? He's been writing since he was a teenager. He's a big man now. He's had tons of stuff in the West End, tons of theatre and that. And he says, yes, I'm really interested in opening up more access for black people in theatre. And I remember thinking, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? You know who runs the Globe Theatre? Is a black woman. Okay. You know who was running Young Vic Theatre? It's that guy who used to be on some soap opera, you know what I mean? He was a black kid. He's just left recently, you know what I mean? You go behind the scenes, you go into Young Vic and you go up the stairs and go behind the scenes, which I've had to do many times because I'm a member of Young Vic. There's a black person there. There's a black person there. There's a director there. Let me tell you, nobody would dare put on a production of Shakespeare in London, even outside London, without half the cast being black. I'm telling you straight. You know what I mean? Look on the TV. I don't watch TVs, but if I do, you know what I mean? Black people are all over the place on the TV. Yeah. It doesn't exist. This idea that there is a system that is preventing black people from getting on does not exist, you know what I mean? What a show that I've got in my head is called Burning an Illusion, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the same thing. It's this same thing, you know what I mean? It is an illusion which black people have been sold, and it is holding them back. Because rather than just getting on with their shit, getting on, building their businesses, doing their stuff, they're whinging about racism. Yeah. Whinging about something that doesn't exist, you know what I mean? Let me tell you, white people are bending over backwards to accommodate black people. But anyway, that's the racism side. My next show is called...
What's your next show called?
Huh?
What's your next show called?
No, I've had this idea for ages that there is a film at the moment which, I should Google it at the same time I'm talking to you, but I'm a technophobe. I'll probably cut you off by accident. But, you know, there is a very famous film. It came out late 70s, early 80s. It had some top reggae stars in there, and it was called Burning an Illusion.
Oh, yeah.
It's by a black director.
Yeah, it's by a black director. And basically, it's about this young black woman who worked in a bank. She's all prim and proper, thinking nothing's wrong with the system. But then she starts to go out with this Yardy Rasta.
That's what's the name. That's what's the name in it, isn't it? The Janet Kay.
Was it Janet Kay? Yeah. Yes. And then there's the guy.
Victor Romeo Evans. Well. Victor Romeo Evans.
Victor Romeo, you got the one. And, you know, he's a Yardy man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember watching that film and thinking, well, you brought that on yourself, mate, you know what I mean? Because the police stopped him and went, man, you know what I mean? And he starts giving it all that attitude, so they drop him, you know what I mean? And they put him in prison. And then
Babylon was another one, wasn't it?
Yeah, with all of a sudden, her illusion that everything was sweet and safe and thing was burst. Yeah. And she started to be aware of the racism and all that in London. So that was her. That is burning an illusion. I'm spinning on its head now. And I want to do a one-man show or two-man show, whatever, called Burning an Illusion, the illusion of racism. You know, like, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. But what it amounts to is someone calling you a nignog. I mean, get over it, you know?
Yeah. And get also, I think when it comes to that as well, you literally hit the nail on the head. Because a lot of us complain, well, there's not this, there's not that. But what about us creating these positions? Look, where All Flavours Radio, for instance, is a radio station that we're not biased or anything against anybody and anyone is welcome, but it's set up by a man from St. Lucia, and a lot of us that's on that station or on this station are black people. So it's not like it can't be done, you know. And like you said,
it's not like no one's stopping you,
right?
You know, people complain about the curriculum, or they say, "Listen, they're not teaching Black history properly." Well, you teach it then.
Yeah, and it's down to the parents, isn't it?
The system that you're calling racism, you want them to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You do it then.
Yeah.
You do it.
And
you know what I mean?
do you know, I've written children's books and based on black scientists and inventors. And I remember I went to this event one time and there was a young black father with his daughter, and I encouraged them to, you know, have a look at, and they was like, oh, not interested. And the way that they looked down on it, and it's like you get that aha moment, that as if and know that that's the reason. You see, because it does filter down. It does, like you said, you're going into the prisons, you're speaking to these young people and so forth. It filters down to who our role models are and who, you know, the people that are going to encourage us. So if our parents aren't interested, how on earth do we expect the youngsters coming up to be any different, you know? In that case,
you know, the separate thing kind of gets me, you know what I mean? But I, you know, as I said, as I got older, you know, I used to be a member of the All African People Revolutionary Party, AAPRP, you know, all these sort of black organisations, you know what I mean, Free the Tottenham Three and all the rest of it. And I was banging to all that. But then as I got older and I started looking around, I'm thinking, I don't think none of this is true. I don't think it's true. This thing, it's like an industry. It's like an industry, you know what I mean?
Well,
you
it's
know,
a lie, isn't it, that's been
funding. It's like blackmail. You know what I mean? It's like you're blackmailing white people. You know what I mean? You're using guilt.
It is a lie, you know, that's been sold.
Even this call for reparations. You know, I just think, hold on. So you, who was never a slave, you want money of people who were never slave owners. You know what I mean? You know, there's not people in London, in England, holding slaves. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that's gone on in the past. And there wasn't, you know, it's like black people have hijacked slavery. It's almost like what they call it, a cultural appropriation. They said, no, slavery is ours. Slavery is something that was done to us. Rubbish. Slavery is one of the oldest things that's been known to man. There is not a country in the world that has not had slavery. Not one country, you know what I mean? And this idea that, it was only England or Europe that took it across the sea, that's nonsense as well. Loads of countries have taken it across the sea and all the rest of it, you know what I mean? That is how the world was, you know what I mean? You'd go, you know, the slavery in Africa, listen, it would never have gone on. The European slave trade could never have gone on if it wasn't already going on in Africa.
Yeah.
And then you think, Who was it who went out of their way? Now, people say, oh, yeah, but you know why they done it? Because it wasn't worth money anymore. But the fact is, do you know who it was who went out of their way to stop slavery and put an end to it near enough all over the world? Do you know who those people were?
The abolitionists. Actually, I can never say that word. The abolitionists.
The abolition movement, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It started in Britain. It started in Britain. It was the Quakers and all the rest of it. And then it went on to the army and the navy, and they were going round and they were stopping it. They say, listen, now other people said, yeah, that's only because they wanted to make way for colonialism. Listen, stop whinging. You know what I mean? You think slavery was bad. The British came and they stopped it. You know what I mean?
But I think you're going to step on a lot of people's toes speaking like this, you know.
Oh, yeah. People say to me, people say, you coconut. I don't care what they want to give me. I deal with what I believe is the truth. You know what I mean? I deal with what I believe in the truth. You know where they couldn't stop slavery, though? Africa. To this day,
it's still in
this day, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, I love my African brothers and sisters,
Algeria,
but you've got to face the truth.
And the United Emirates as well, a lot of that goes on as well.
Oh, yeah. So there was the Arab slave trade and all the rest of it.
And we also have, don't forget, we have the ones that are stolen, people that are stolen. There's a word for it, I can't remember, trafficked.
Yeah, the trafficking, the trafficking, which, you know what I mean? It seems like loads, you know, this word trafficking, I'm very suspect about that as well, because it seems like everything's been put into trafficking, you know what I mean? So if, you know, like if, supposing I'm a pimp, and I've got, you know, 6 girls who are, you know what I mean, they're ready to have sex with other guys for money. They've said, this is what I'm going to do. And I say, right, come. I've got a minibus. There's this conference of these guys. They want to shag, you know what I mean? And I put them in. Not that I would ever do anything like this. This is just a scenario. So I put them in the van. I said, come, I'll take you to Manchester and we do this thing. That means I've trafficked those girls, you know? Because trafficking happens
whether you want to be trafficked or not. Is it? Was it consensual by the ladies?
No. Even if you consent, you are still trafficked. This is what happened with the Princess Andrew. You know that girl who, I forget her name, Gwendolyn.
She's gone now. She
committed suicide. Yeah. She was up for it. She was up for it. You know what I mean? They knew. Nobody, you know. Now they say, all right, a 17-year-old can't consent. I'm telling you, when I was 17, I knew what bloody, you know what I mean? I knew if I wanted to have sex with someone or not for money, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, but it seems to me that they put it in. You know what it is, right? That this is the capital thing, right? Victim mentality. It's a way of pushing away your responsibility. They're trying to say that a 17-year-old who has decided, you know what? This is a quick way for me to make money, you know what I mean? I'm going to do that. And if powerful people say, all right, then, if that's what you want to do, come on, I've got customers for you, then that means that she's a victim. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a terrible thing to do, you know what I mean? If I come across a 17-year-old wanting to do that, I'd go out my way to bloody try and talk her out of it and all the rest of it. But to say that she hasn't got no sense of responsibility is nonsense, you know what I mean? So, you know, trafficking happens. It's still called trafficking, whether the people consent or not. And, you know, don't get me wrong, young children cannot consent, and that's a different ball game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it seems like everything put under trafficking.
You've touched on quite a couple of great issues and things that need to be spoken on, I think, in forums
but they're not
as well.
spoken about.
Yeah.
They're not spoken about, Tash. And the thing is, probably you're going to have to edit this like mad, because if not, you'd get cancelled. You know what I mean? They'd say that you are platforming a man. You know what I mean? You know. I say the same thing about racism. I've had some excellent reviews, some excellent reviews. And if you look on if you go on, I noticed that you're on LinkedIn. If you go on LinkedIn and look at my recommendations, they are glowing. You know what I mean? There's about 15 of them, and they are glowing, and from all walks of, you know what I mean? All walks of people. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Everyone's got to be careful, but I can only speak my truth as I know it at the time. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? I can be persuaded otherwise, but I must admit, you know what I mean? You know, I say that that's going to be my next show. It's not going to be my next show because I have tons of ideas.